introducing broad storytelling for scholarly publishers. So, Ms. Brown, please.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
You're welcome.
Very, very pleased to be here with you all. I'm here representing TBI Communications. TBI stands for The Big Idea. We are a marketing and communications consultancy based in Oxfordshire in the UK, and we work with publishers and associations, NGOs, and services that support the scholarly communications industry, large and small. And for me, I'm here with 18 years working for 3 major international publishers. So I do bring the international perspective here to the table today, but I've been really interested to hear some of the local regional challenges that you're facing. I'm going to talk to you today about storytelling and the opportunities that I think that these offer for scholarly publishers. I am going to refer to a lot of global examples in my talk today, but I really hope that you can see the local application and how this could work for you. I'm going to start with a story. So I've been fascinated by how organizations communicate and how people communicate for as long as I can remember. And this beautiful girl here is my eldest daughter, Tara. And she's holding up the first story that she ever wrote. And she was 4 at the time. And you can see there's a hero of the story. It's a princess. And there is a challenger, the evil queen. And even though Tara was only 4, she could understand the principles of writing stories and write her own stories because they follow 3 very important principles. Stories are memorable, they're structured, and they're emotional. And I'll come back to these 3 principles and how we can apply these in a way to build publisher reputation and enhance brands. But first of all, I want to look at 3 reasons specifically for why scholarly publishers should be considering storytelling. And these all center around the fact that our communities consume information about our brands, and that's regardless of whether we create the content or not. So first of all, researchers are figuring out how to choose the right publisher or the right journal, and this is becoming increasingly important as the market becomes more commoditized. Secondly, there's a really close relationship that businesses are starting to see between trust and revenue. And then thirdly, as I say, your communities are consuming content wherever they are. So let's look first of all at how that commoditization of the market is affecting how we should be using content marketing and community content. When researchers have less and less to distinguish between a growing number of titles, and has been mentioned several times today, increasing demands for open access revenues, it becomes even more important for publisher brands to differentiate themselves. And you'll notice a number of publishers are starting to use stories to present their company data to help showcase points of difference. So for example, the right of this slide shows a very recent example that Springer Nature has used, which draws out their business data and presents it in a storytelling narrative. And that's to help indicate the reach and impact of their fully open access portfolio. Secondly, I can click on, brands are starting inside and outside of our industry to realize that there is a direct relationship between trust and revenue. There was a recent report from Salesforce, which describes trust and company values as foundational to business growth. 89% of customers in this Salesforce report were more loyal to companies that they trust. And conversely, negative or distrustful activities can have a long-term impact on buying decisions. So in the same Salesforce report, 65% had stopped buying from organizations that did something that their community considered distrustful. So you'll see increasingly publishers are starting to tell stories around things other than their publishing program. So for example, a number of things that have been mentioned this morning around open science or around societal impact are areas where publishers can start to show why they are doing what they do and the impact of the publishing that they do. So I've included here an example of the SDG Publishers Compact. So going beyond the journals themselves to the goals of the publishing and the impact of that publishing. Thirdly, wherever your communities are, they are engaging with content. And that's despite or in spite of whether you create it or not. A Deloitte report published last month explored the increasing value of social media as a dynamic space where consumers can connect, gather information, and stay entertained. They're increasingly finding news on these platforms and increasingly using video content. Publishers can engage their communities in meaningful dialogue through these social channels, and they can humanize their organizations to help build understanding. I've included an example here from Frontiers, who frequently use their authors in their social media to create real personal stories that are engaging and draw interest. So just to summarize these last 3 slides, content marketing is becoming increasingly important for publishers. It offers a strategic way to introduce storytelling to your communities, which can engage them, build awareness, and in the long term, build loyalty, brand loyalty, and in turn, build revenue. I'm going to go back to the science of stories now. Storytelling is something that we just all understand. It's part of our nature. We're programmed to understand it, and neuroscience research shows that we have a physical response to stories. We're drawn into a story and we feel connected to what we're hearing. Stories are also memorable, and that makes them easy to pass on. They often follow a very formulaic approach. And what you can see on the left here is an indication of that that's been applied. So stories often start with some kind of discovery or incident, which leads to a confrontation or challenge, which results in a climax before the hero of the story is tasked with making a decision, and we finally resolve. And this formula works just as well in an epic cinematic story such as Star Wars, as it does in an impact case study, as you can see here on the slide. So this is from a UK-based university who've used this narrative arc to shape an impact case study. Similarly, on the right hand of the slide, you can see this is an example of a sales case study. So it's been applied by digital science to show customers how you can use dimensions. So this formula works incredibly well in many contexts. But it isn't just the formulas of stories that make stories work so well. It's the humanity at the center of the story. It's the why, the challenge or the problem that drives stories and creates an emotional connection to your audience. This is the same rationale that sits behind Simon Sinek's work on the Golden Circle. Sinek's basic concept is that whilst most companies communicate their value and message from the outside of this circle, the what of the product inwards, inspirational communication starts from the inside of the circle in. They start with a why. They start with what the challenge or the problem is that the product or the journals, in our case, are trying to solve. And it's this approach that great stories use to prompt an emotional response. It triggers human engagement. So for us and the scholarly communications industry, if we start with our customers, our researchers, and their motivations, their jobs to be done, their pain points, we start at the center of our why, and it enables us to build stories outwards to showcase what we do to address these customer goals and challenges in a human, relatable way. So, if this has whet your appetite and inspired you to think about stories for your organization, I'm going to summarize 5 takeaways that can help you get started. Business strategy is critical, and I'll show some examples to that. Thinking about strategic channel choices and which ones are right for you. Creating content that gives the right message for your audience. Setting measurable goals. And then lastly, being as human as you can with your content. So first, to your strategic business goals. A content marketing strategy should start with your organizational goals. It doesn't sit alone, and marketing should never be starting to think about, we need a white paper before we think about what is the organizational challenge that we're trying to address. So the 2 examples that I've put up on the screen here Both relate to that transition to open access, which has been talked about so much this morning. In both cases, these reports use business data, and on the right, a report which I was involved in the creation of also uses market intelligence, so surveys with researchers. And both of these then take these insights to translate into something meaningful to support that transition to gold open access, to lean towards a position that showcases publisher value, and also helps to put those messages into something that's translated from numbers, from market research, into something that can be used to support policy discussion, to educate researchers about the benefits of open access, and to support customers in demonstrating why publishers are adding value. Other examples of using your organizational strategy could be thinking about a go-to-market strategy for new products, or it could be about new markets that you are trying to reach. In each of these cases, think about the strategic business goals that your content can help to address. Secondly, think about the channels where your communities are and be strategic about where to put your content. It's very tempting to try and launch multiple channels. You can see a number of publishers are doing so and putting content across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, the lists go on. But remember that each of these channels requires its own individual content plan and management of that content plan in order to be effective. It's critical, therefore, to look at where your community spend their time. This could be through market research, web analytics, or social listening, and that will enable you to choose the right channels, thinking again about regional channels in particular, that could be right to engage with them. Again, it may well be that just one channel is all you need to really help you reach that community that you want to interact with your content. So I've given an example here of specific content that's been created for nature, and you can see that Twitter is being used here as a channel to really engage directly with content that's within the journal. And that's, again, think about the content that you want the community to engage with, and the right channel to use to do that. So that takes me on to my third point. The right content is critical to enable your audiences to understand the message that you're trying to give them. So on the left here, you can see a blog has been used to translate something that's quite technical, so AI, into something that's meaningful and easy to understand. Case studies can do a similar thing by looking at how something complex has been applied. Visuals are even more memorable, so an infographic or video can help you translate a complex topic into something memorable. And then here's an example on the right, where an introduction to climate change has been created as a 60-second video. Long form content, as I've mentioned, white papers can be very powerful in explaining a position or helping to present company data, but this requires a lot of time and effort to plan and create. Events are another platform which are time consuming, but they do offer brilliant platforms to offer authentic human dialogue and engagement. So you can think about both live events or virtual, such as podcasts and webinars. All of these are content that you can use to engage with your communities. Fourth recommendation is to think about being reflective. Set goals for your engagement and how you will measure the success of what you put into place. This can take time to do. So a brand tracking survey or social listening can both be valuable strategic metrics to invest in. You might also measure reactive, immediate measures, such as signups to a newsletter or registrants on an email list, as these will give you indicators that people are interested in the content that you're creating. And then lastly, be more human with your content. This is the title of my slide and the takeaway that I most want you all to think through. Your clients, when your clients are the heroes of your stories, people are more likely to respond because they take action when they see their peers taking action. So testimonials, interviews, case studies, and events will allow your community to speak in their own words. Being authentic And using emotion is what connects your readers, listeners, and viewers to your stories and draws them in. And it's what they'll remember about your organization and convert them to engaged, loyal brand followers in the long term. I'll leave you with one final thought from an excellent book on content marketing by Bernadette Dewar. And she says, change how people feel before you try to change what they do. If you can use stories, these will act as a memorable, shareable, emotional connection to your organization. I do hope that this has been useful and interesting, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Mithu Lucraft, and thank you very much for being on time, rather before time. It's good. It was much appreciated. May I ask the moderator, Charlie Meow, about the Tash Brown? Is the speaker traceable, please?
Okay, I just got message from Tash
Yes.
because some urgent things. She said sorry and prefer to be changed to the last one. That is 2 hours from now.
Okay, so that means we go to the next speaker, whom we all know is Pippa Smart, like we have heard her many times, a magic lady, and she is an independent consultant and advisor and trainer of publisher, and she hails from Oxford, United Kingdom. And she is going